morning. It's always a thrill for me to be here at the Web Summit, to be here with all of you, this extraordinary startup community. And I think we come together at such an interesting time. That's why I want to talk today about what I'll describe to you as the next great GPT. And you'll see that we're all, in fact, part of it. I want to talk today about the course of technology, and I want to start by talking about it not in the way that technologists do, but economists. Because for economists, there are two types of products in the world. Most products are single-purpose tools. Like a smoke detector or a lawnmower, they do one thing, and they do that one thing very well. But there are every so often general-purpose technologies, GPTs, as economists have long referred to them, that literally change the world. They are technologies like electricity that can be used across the economy and impact every sector of society. Now, the truth is, there have been three huge industrial revolutions in the last 250 years, and they were all driven by GPTs. The first started in the United Kingdom, and it was steam and then especially ironworking that led to the first industrial societies. The second, starting in the 1880s, the second industrial revolution was built on electricity and machine tooling. And then the third industrial revolution, the story of our lives, has been about computerization. And everywhere one goes, when there is a new industrial revolution, people focus first and foremost on the leading edge, the latest chips, the leading AI models. They matter greatly. But history tells us that one thing matters more than who leads that first wave of innovation. It's not the innovation itself, but it's a second economic term, diffusion. It's the ability to take this technology and diffuse it across an economy, across a country, across a continent, in other words, to get people to adopt the technology broadly. And there's so much I think we can learn from the lessons of the past, including, say, the second industrial revolution, because what you see, for example, was where electricity went, prosperity followed. You see it in the United States. You see it in Portugal. You see it in every country for which there is data. Because electricity transformed the economy, its broad adoption fueled productivity and economic growth. And what was true in the second industrial revolution has been true in the third industrial revolution as well, the last 50 years, which coincidentally really is Microsoft's life on this planet, having been founded 50 years ago in April. But I'm not here to just look at the past. We have an opportunity to talk about the future. And as we come to the year 2025, it is the right time to start to talk about the second quarter of the 21st century and what we can do to help shape it in a better way. And we should all start by recognizing one thing, perhaps above all else in terms of our conversation this morning. AI is the next great GPT. It is the next great general purpose technology. Now, when you start with that as the founding of a conversation, it quickly leads to a couple of things that we also can learn from. They even have profound implications for us, because the first thing one realizes is that every GPT is built with a tech stack. It's because it connects with so many other types of technologies. This has always been true throughout history. And so if one had a time machine that could go back to the year 1878, if one could walk the streets of New York where Thomas Edison was just perfecting for the first time the light bulb, we would know what he did not the day he made that light bulb illuminate. That he wasn't just inventing a new product. He was embarking on building an entire tech stack, something that would require fuel for power plants, electrical grids for distribution, standardization and ultimately appliances for manufacturers and users. We would know what he did not, that electricity was about to create an entire new economy. And we would be able to look back at hindsight and see what this meant, not just for Thomas Edison in New York and New Jersey, but what it meant for the world. In a way that speaks, I think, so strongly and directly to us today, the innovations that made electricity a driver, not just of productivity growth, but of improvement in people's lives, came fundamentally at the appliance layer. All the new appliances that were built, mostly by startups. You go to a country like Germany, you look at a company that was founded based on licensing Edison's patent. It was called AEG. And in the 20 years that followed, they created an electric kettle. They created an electric iron. They created an electric fan. Just imagine what that meant for people on a hot summer day. And they built a new economy in Germany. Fundamentally, this was the fuel that drove the great German Mittelstand forward. It built a prosperous age across Europe. But what I find then so interesting is we can come back to where we are today. We can come back to the year 2024 and we can walk into this arena this morning, and with this perspective, what we recognize is that we're not just individual companies building individual products. We are a new ecosystem building a new tech stack, an AI tech stack. And it starts, interestingly, like electricity with land and power, in this case for chips. Fundamentally, this AI tech stack has three big layers. The infrastructure layer, where the chips are used in data centers, the platform layer, and then the applications layer. And at Microsoft, what we're focused on is not just building products for each layer, but helping to support an ecosystem as a whole. So when we go to different countries in Europe, as I have this past year, and announced in the UK and Germany and France and Spain and Italy and beyond, that we are building infrastructure, AI data centers, we're not just building them for ourselves or our own services. We are building them for the ecosystem as a whole. We're building them for all of you, as perhaps more than anyone else. But we recognize that having infrastructure is indispensable, but it is not sufficient. That's why we're focused on the creation of a new platform layer that brings together foundation models like OpenAI, Mistral, many others, but creates a platform layer that combines models, data, and new platform-level software services. So that's what you see us bringing together, a new tool chain so that developers in startups and more broadly can make use of all of this technology to create your own applications. In some cases, you'll build on our Copilot and agents with Copilot Studio. In other cases, you won't, but you will still be able to use the infrastructure and all of these platform tools. Ultimately, this fourth industrial revolution is more like the second. You have to have this enormous investment of infrastructure, just like power plants. But when you do, you unleash innovation everywhere. And just like AEG became a household name in Germany, there are startups in this room that will become household names around the world. And that's why our fundamental mission in so many ways is, frankly, to enable your success. That's at the heart of our AI for Startups initiative, to provide access to compute, including free compute for startups with credits, access to services and to experts, and I think perhaps often most importantly, access to one of the great and largest enterprise sales forces in the world. I met with the CEO of a startup this morning. He said they had been in the Azure marketplace for only 3 months, but already had had 3 calls from Microsoft saying, hey, we have a customer that we think would be interested in your product. Let us go with you to sell to them. That is how we get the flywheel going. Because it takes a lot of money and more than a little courage to make the billions and billions of dollars of investments that we're making to build out this infrastructure, to build out this platform layer. But we know, whether it's our applications or yours, that is where the value is going to reside, that will enable and encourage and excite people to put all of this new technology to work. We have the opportunity together to build a whole new AI economy. But we have the opportunity, I think, to do even more than that. We can build the world's next industrial revolution. But as we do that, I think the other thing that unites so many of us is a belief that we can do this better than it has been done before. We can build a better industrial revolution than was done in the 3 revolutions that preceded us. How do we do that? Well, we commit ourselves to not only growing and doing well, but also doing good. And that means investing in trust, as this last panel just discussed. It means making security and privacy and safety and responsible AI priorities for each of us, so that the public can use what we create with confidence. It's not just the right thing to do. Frankly, if you want to grow a business, it's also the smart thing to do. That's why we're interested in working with others, with you, and with customers to ensure that AI is developed and deployed responsibly, securely, safely. And it's why part of our work as a community is to build out an AI governance regime for communities, for countries, for the world, that start with what we do as individual firms, that will build on industry standards we create, that will require national and international and even global policy. I think we also need to recognize that we need to do something in this industrial revolution that people didn't need to worry about before. We need to build an industrial revolution that is sensitive to the needs of the planet. We can't afford to just build data centers and consume electricity without regard for what it means for a local community or for a country or for planet Earth. We need to commit, as we are, to investing to add new sources of electricity to the grid, to invest in carbon-free energy for the grid, and to commit that when we need more electricity, if it means more investment, we will support those investments. We can afford it, and we will do it so that the electricity prices, the rates of our neighbors in these communities, do not rise. And there are days when difficult conversations are needed, as we found in the United States when we recently announced that we would spend the money to bring back online a nuclear power reactor at 3 Mile Island, one that had worked safely for 40 years but was decommissioned in 2019 because of economics, so that we can add 874 megawatts of electricity in Pennsylvania. This, too, is part of what we need to talk about. Different countries will want to look to different sources of energy, but we know one thing above all else: everywhere, countries need more electricity. And then ultimately, I think the real opportunity that gets so many of us up in the morning is this: we can use AI to help solve the world's problems. You all, in so many instances, were created to do something that the world needs to have done. And we've started to learn together at lightning speed what a difference AI can make. One example that I always think about the most is something that affects more than 500 million people on the planet. There are 574 million people that have diabetes. And that means that they can develop what's called diabetic retinopathy. It's blindness. It is easily detected by an ophthalmologist or eye doctor, but there's one big problem. There's 8.2 billion people on planet Earth and only 200,000 ophthalmologists. Most people will never meet one. AI isn't just a solution that can help, it is the only solution for most people that will ever help. Because partnering with a startup named Iris, we've helped them develop an AI-based application that can work on anyone who has a phone and a camera and an internet connection. And that application is 97% as good as an ophthalmologist in detecting diabetic retinopathy. When it's detected early, people's vision can be saved. Think of that. We are in the business of saving people's sight. And what's true there is true in so many other instances: healthcare, education, you name it, that is what you all are doing. But to be truly successful, we're going to have to do one thing that Thomas Edison never dreamed of doing. We need to bring AI to the world. To me, one of the most remarkable things about technology can be seen in this map, especially if the slide advances. This is a map of planet Earth in our current day. You see lights on around the world, but not equally on every continent. The reality is, 142 years after the first power plant started working in Lower Manhattan, we still live in a world where 770 million people lack access to electricity. It's 43% of the people who live in Africa. Think about that for a second. Electricity is probably the most important GPT ever invented. And 150 years after it was created, there are 750 million people who still cannot use it. This, I believe, is quite possibly the greatest technology tragedy in history. I think it is a sobering reminder of the importance of diffusing technology so it is accessible and affordable to everyone, everywhere. But I think more than that, it is an inspiration. It calls on us to think about how we can do better, to combine these massive infrastructure investments, this new platform layer, and all the applications that the world will create, and to resolve together that we will bring this around the world not in a century and a half, but in the decade ahead. If we can do that, and we can do it together, we will get off to the start that we need to make sure that the second quarter of the 21st century truly advances not only opportunity for all of us, but builds a better world. Thank you very much.